This podcast may contain explicit language. You'd be killing a horse. That's not first-degree murder. In fact, it's not murder at all. In fact, I don't know what it is. The killing is next. Welcome to the Greatest Movie of All Time podcast, the show that uses a unique grading style to redefine what the greatest movies are. I'm Tom Duncan.
And I'm Dana Duncan.
Tonight, for our 312th episode, we discuss The Killing from 1956, celebrating its 70th anniversary. Written and directed by Stanley Kubrick, cinematography by Lucien Ballard, music by Gerald Fried, editing by Betty Steinberg. Starring Sterling Hayden as Johnny Clay, Colleen Gray as Faye, Vince Edwards as Val Cannon, J.C. Flippen as Marvin Unger, Elisha Cook Jr. as George Peedy, Marie Windsor as Sherry Peedy, Ted DeCorsia as policeman Randy Kennan, Joe Sawyer as Mike O'Reilly, James Edwards as track parking attendant, Timothy Carey as Nicky Arcane, Tito Vuolo as Joe Piano, Joe Turkel as Tiny, Jay Adler as Leo the Lone Shark, Kola Quariani as Maurice Abukov, Dorothy Adams as Mrs. Ruthie O'Reilly, and Art Gilmore as the narrator. Background for the movie, based on Clean Break by Lionel White, the novel. The Killing was released on May 19th, 1956. On a budget of $320,000, The Killing is said to have collected a loss of $130,000. Critics were effusive in their praise, however, for Kubrick's vision and techniques both at the time and in the decades to follow, and some have even included the film among Kubrick's best. It currently holds a 96% among critics on Rotten Tomatoes, a 91 score on Metacritic, and a 4 out of 5 on Letterboxd. But, of course, we can't do this by ourselves, so we welcome in our returning celebrity guest, the co-host of the War Starts at Midnight podcast, a CLP contributor, making his 16th appearance on the show to date. It's the Hotlanta hotshot of hospitality. Please welcome back Peterson W. Hill.
Thank you, gentlemen. Always excited to be back and talking about Stanley Kubrick. What better than that?
Well, I don't know. You're growing the Thanos beard.
Yeah, it is getting a little. It's been a little busy, so I probably should shave it a little bit.
Yeah. Now, you're the only one of the three triumvirate tonight to not be wearing your polo shirt.
Well, it is what it is.
Did you get it? Let's start there.
The polo? Oh, I haven't gotten the polo yet, no.
I thought those were all sent out.
I got the shirt, not the polo yet, though.
Okay. The polo shirt I've already gotten there, because she ordered it and said it was sent at the same time that I got mine, so I don't know. I'll have to check in with our shipping and handling.
How long ago was that?
2.5 weeks ago, 3.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
See, she was also supposed to have sent out a hat at the same time. But I don't have tracking information for either, so I wonder.
Well, hey, I only let her run my finances.
Yeah, both home and the office.
And polo's at 15?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Dana was demonstrating the hoodie like 2 weeks ago.
Yes, I had the hoodie. It's royal blue.
Yep.
Ooh. Looks good.
Nice. And this, what, number 17? 16? 14?
16 for you,
15?
yes.
16. Okay. Inside Man taken was the 15. Okay.
No.
Was Sounds of Lambs after that?
Yes.
Got it. That was 15. I forgot that
Yeah. Yeah, you decided on a whim yet again, much like this episode where we had someone else scheduled and you just drop in.
You know, part of it is it's been a minute since I've seen this movie, and I was like, that's a good reason to go back to it. Good reason to link back up with Stan.
Okay. Dad and I haven't seen this movie, so we can start there. So the only person with a relationship to it is you.
In fact, I saw it before Tom. Well, we started watching it at the same time, but...
Yes. As is the case now on Fridays, if you load something up and put me in a slightly cool room, I'm going to fall asleep.
Tom, this movie's 80 minutes long.
Yeah, I fell asleep at the 25-minute mark.
Yeah. And at the 28-minute mark, the snoring was loud enough that we had to turn the sound up.
Like father, like son. On Friday evenings, somebody else used to pass out.
Yeah, well, now I try to get more sleep during the week.
Yeah, well, can't say that much, but... So, what is your relationship with the movie, though?
Yeah, so I watched this first time in a kind of a strange circumstance because I was my wife's stepdad, for all intents, her essentially her dad too, was having surgery, and we were at the hospitals in Durham, North Carolina, and I had downloaded some movies, so I had something to watch in the time we were just waiting. All the family was there, and I watched this for the first time, just sitting there waiting, and I knew it was 80 minutes. I was that's perfect, and I watched it in the waiting room, between going back and seeing him, and loved it, thought it was great, and then, I've seen it probably every 6 years since. So this is my third time watching it, I'd say. So probably saw it like 2010, 2016, and maybe now. So maybe like every 7. But yeah.
Yeah, what is the difference of 2026 to 2016 there, buddy?
That is 10 years. So it might have been, maybe it was 2017. I don't even know. Who knows? Time's a flat circle now.
Well, at least you're not the only person on this program that can't do math. But
erase like 2020 and 2022, and I'm a little closer there.
Okay. Noted. So, Dad, you and I, we had not seen this previous to this time. I specifically put it on the list because it's one of 3 major Kubrick works. I don't count his first 2, which are harder to find. They're much deeper cuts. Every other work after that, from this movie forward, is basically a major work of his. But it's one of 3 movies of his that I hadn't seen. So I put it on the list to make sure that we talked about it. I needed kind of that excuse, that push to get us here. Paths of Glory, we haven't finished yet, or we haven't done for the show, and I haven't seen. I think you might have already, and you did encourage us to put it on the list. I think it might be on the list next year. That sounds right.
57 sounds right.
And the only other one that I have not seen to this point is Eyes Wide Shut.
Great one.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll leave that at whenever Eyes Wide Shut comes up. Yeah. Maybe we need overly sexual movies month or something like that. If we're going to go back to theme months.
Christmas. It's a Christmas movie.
It's a Christmas movie. Okay.
There's Christmas trees all over the place. They're Christmas shopping in the last scene. Absolutely Christmas movie. It starts at a Christmas party.
All right. We'll put it on in December.
Fun for the whole family.
Yeah.
I have so many impressions in my head, and I have no idea what it's about or anything really about it other than who's the stars in it at the front. So, we'll find out, I guess. But, Dad, first off, did you like the film?
Yes, I did. I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. It was a good noir. I thought Sterling Hayden was really good.
I would agree. I generally liked it. I don't think it is his strongest film. I think there are several others that are just better put together. Like, he had a shoestring budget for this one. For other ones, he has master craftsman. He's inventing new techniques. He's doing so much other work. I love the preservation of this film. but you can definitely see it being an earlier work. But I also appreciate the fact that it was much shorter than any other Stanley Kubrick movie, which all seem to be like 2.5 to 3 hours apiece.
Paths of Glory is really short too. That's like 140, maybe even like 122. I mean, it's quite short.
Okay.
Killer's Kiss is the one before this in 1955. That is like 55, 60 minutes. Very short.
Okay.
Only did shorts. That's how he started, was directing March of Time. The newsreels.
Now, one of the things that I really noticed in watching the film is kind of in discussing that kind of newsreel-esque narration and overlay and the rest of it was the kind of documentary style filmmaking that seems to be in this movie that feels a little bit out of place. I think in context of the 50s, it makes more sense because that was much more of the moment. But how do you guys take that ambiance or that aesthetic from this movie?
So the aesthetic to me is so that I think in some ways gets around the Hays Code and kind of gives you a little bit of a cinema verite feel. So I think that's part of it. And I think the other part is it gives you the chance to observe these people in a way. And I don't think Kubrick's really judging them. Obviously, in the 1950s, everyone, you do a crime, you got to die on screen. You got to be punished for what you did. And I don't think Kubrick really wants to do that. So I think he does find, as Johnny Clay says at some point, he says, these are just ordinary people. They got a little larceny in them, but they're not bad people. And I think that's kind of the angle Kubrick comes at and why it's in that style.
It reminded me a lot of the modern day, like, Forensic Files, where it's, there's narration and then there's some action and then there's more narration and action. And
I suppose I could see that. One of the things that I also wanted to discuss in general to the narration is I am not someone who is very critical. I know there are opponents of narration out there that feels like it spoon feeds the audience. To me, I'm okay with however the film wants to present itself to me. Sometimes I need that a little bit to be able to give me that omniscient narrator. Particularly, I think narration works for me best when it's usually adapting a point of view from a novel where you're not going to get that perspective otherwise. For example, Forrest Gump kind of uses narration well because you have to get inside his head. He's a storyteller. The way that it's doing the flashbacks, I think, is actually somewhat creative to how you develop that story through the form of the book instead of telling it in a linear narrative, but rather in flashback. But in this one, it felt a little Dragnet-like.
it was a popular TV show at that time.
Well, yeah. I was wondering if either of you picked up on that and what your thoughts here are on the narration. Is it good, bad? Do you have problems with it generally?
I don't think it really detracts or is additive. I think it is kind of a neutral for me. And I think part of the narration that it is, I think, trying to spoon feed the audience a little bit because initially the cut of this film that Kubrick did was very confusing. And I'm sure the studio was like, you got to make this a little more streamlined. And I think he goes the other way, and it's very airtight. I mean, this thing makes complete sense.
I don't mind it, but I grew up in the era where narration on crime shows and detective shows was common. So it didn't bother me one way or the other.
I mean, do you either of you have a problem with it just regularly being used in any movie?
I think it really just depends on the movie. And the one thing I will say in the positive camp of this for narration is it gives you the timestamps. And the timestamps are important because it tells you exactly where people are at the exact moment. And for this time, this kind of narrative is probably incredibly fresh. So I think now people would realize, oh, this is all happening simultaneously. Then, I don't know. I mean, I'm somebody, Shawshank Redemption might be like the great narrated movie. Goodfellas, same thing. And those movies have to be narrated. And what you're watching on screen, Goodfellas is complete antithesis of what you're actually watching. You know, it's, this is this rock and roll lifestyle. Everyone's so happy-go-lucky. And the narration flies in the face of what you're watching. This tells you exactly what you're seeing.
Now, this is another question I've been mulling over for a few days. What do you think the title is in reference to? I have a couple of different ideas here, but I'd be willing to hear what you guys think first.
The double entente. Because it's both. It's they're going to make a killing by the theft, and the result in the paper we'll be putting in is the killing is everybody was killed, except for Sterling Hayden.
I don't think everybody else was killed. I think there's only one guy that ends up dead.
Oh, no.
Oh, well, I guess George as
they're
well.
All dead. They all died in the hotel, in the room.
Yeah.
They showed them all dead.
To jump to your question, what happens to Maurice? Maurice bites it. Maurice is dead. Not Maurice, Marvin. Sorry, I apologize. Marvin dies. He's killed. The only people who survive are the girls. Maybe Sterling Hayden survives. I mean, I guess it depends on what he does in that next couple of minutes. But yeah, Maurice lives. I think he makes it out alive, but everyone else is dead. And then obviously the horse is part of the killing. Right. Everyone dies in the hotel room, and then you make a killing with the money. But yeah, I think the most literal translation is the horse. The killing of the horse is the thing that all of this is centered around.
Yeah.
But again, I also think it's the score. So I think it is a double entente.
You're just repeating now.
It's just a double entente.
Is it a double entente?
It's a double entente.
Just maybe? Maybe? Possibly?
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe a triple.
Yeah, could be.
Now, I was struck watching the movie how much it seemed to be similar to some other films that I'd seen. Now, I have yet to see The Asphalt Jungle, and I did a very quick cursory research, and that seemed to be the movie that popularized the heist film. And this is obviously 6 years after that, but there are not a ton of heist films. Heist films didn't really truly become popular until like the late 60s and the 70s. But I can see flashes of not the George Clooney, but the Frank Sinatra Ocean's 11 in this movie. There's a lot of that in here, and it's actually no surprise to me that Sinatra optioned this or tried to option it before Kubrick got his hands on it, because I think he very much wanted to make something like this, but ends up making Ocean's 11 instead. But it feels like some of the early heist movies. And so I guess I'm wondering, did you guys feel some of those through lines as well? Were there other movies that you could feel in this?
Thomas Crown Affair?
Which one?
Well, either. I mean,
because I've only seen the latter version.
Yeah, the original was with
Steve McQueen.
So, same. I think that would probably be more close or closer.
And I don't know the year on this one. The first thing that comes to mind is like Pickup on South Street. That's one. I mean, Asphalt Jungle, certainly. But this kind of like street level noir is, I think, really appealing in a lot of ways. It isn't the noir that is driven by seedy characters. These are pretty normal people. No one wants anybody to get hurt. Nobody wants anybody to die. It's just everything that can go wrong does go wrong.
Well, and I think there's no strange fact of Quentin Tarantino saying he specifically ripped off this movie for Reservoir Dogs. And I think there are some additional visages that you can probably see into Pulp Fiction with how this movie kind of plays out. It's very much in the car. It's at street level. You're in apartments. The way it looks. All of those things kind of play into it as well.
Yeah, I mean, Tarantino, I could see him studying this a lot. Just the dialogue, the way the patter is it's very simple, but has a certain kind of poetry to it, especially out of Sterling Hayden's mouth. I think it has a certain kind of eloquence to it, which that's what Quentin Tarantino is great at.
Yeah. Now, I would mention in that Kubrick is not responsible for the dialogue of the movie. They had a different specific writer to that. But everything else, at least the concept and the design of it, is all on him.
Non-linear story. I think that Tarantino didn't say anything, but I'm trying to remember if there were too many other non-linear stories. If he really loved this one for Reservoir Dogs, is this the root for Pulp Fiction as well?
Could be. Yeah, yeah, it certainly could be. This to me feels more like Jackie Brown than those two. Because this is not... It's not taking the big kind of swings that those two movies are. Jackie Brown's much more of a, hey, this is our story, we're going to tell it really well.
Just some other possibilities of non-linear films that you could take some examples from. Double Indemnity, Lost Weekend, both told kind of in that same vein.
Yeah.
Stray Dog, if he's going for Kurosawa, and we know that he obviously ripped off a lot of different people.
And that's 52?
Stray Dog, it's 47.
Oh, it's 47. Okay, it's just a little... Okay.
Rashomon, also with the non-linear because it's back and forth. There aren't a lot of great examples in the 50s, but you get La Dolce Vita, Breathless, 8.5, Harakiri. Any of those would possibly be up for that. But I could also see him taking from stuff from the 70s as well, where it was much more intertwined, integrated with film at that point, because you got like Catch-22 and The Conformist. Annie Hall is kind of told that way, but I think he could have taken it from a lot of different places. So before we get too much further, Dad, do you have our plot summary ready for us?
I do. The Killing is a tense crime thriller about a carefully planned racetrack robbery that slowly falls apart because of bad luck, greed, and human mistakes. Sterling Hayden plays Johnny Clay, a smart criminal who gathers a group of men to help him steal money from a horse race track. Each member of the team has a specific job, and the plan seems nearly perfect. As the robbery moves forward, Kubrick shows the events from different points of view, building suspense as the audience sees how every detail connects. Problems begin when one man's reckless actions and another man's jealous wife threaten the entire operation.
Thank you, Dad. So what is the film about?
I mean, long and short of it, crime does not pay. That's the...
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see that one, and that was one I thought. But also, the bigger the score, the harder it is to pull off.
And part of that is the more cooks in the kitchen, the more somebody's going to add the wrong spice. The more the one person's going to do the wrong thing. Which is, George is the one who kind of unravels a lot of this. I think at the end, Sterling Hayden still would probably get taken down. But, yeah, I mean, I just think that's part of it. Yeah, the more people involved, the harder it is.
The number one thing why I am not normally convinced by many, if any, conspiracy theories is the overwhelming guilt and human vulnerability, frailty, mistakes that happen during the course of these things. The more people that you have, the more likely that you've entrusted stuff to people that cannot keep secrets. That's why pretty much the only lone theory, and it's just because of who my dad is and what he's been doing, that I buy into is the Kennedy assassination. Outside of that, I believe we walked on the moon. I don't believe Kubrick filmed it. And you can basically throw out whatever else you want in there. I don't think that there are mass chemicals in the drinking water. I don't think that there are problems with vaccines.
Fluoridation.
Maybe I'm naive, but I find it hard to believe. Oh, and there aren't big issues with the voting in this country.
Well, I think now there might be.
Well, okay, there are systematic issues with things are apportioned, but in the process of actually counting the votes...
No, that is not, yes.
And people voting illegally, that I think is total nonsense.
Dead people tend to not vote. I think this is...
At least since the 60s. I can't speak for Cook County in pre-1960.
Well, let's just say Mayor Daley back in the 60s.
But okay. Did you know? Sterling Hayden was paid $40,000 for his lead role. Jack Palance and Victor Mature were both considered for the part. Stanley Kubrick took no fee as director of the film. Did you know? The location where Johnny Clay, Sterling Hayden, proposes the deal to Maurice Obukhov, I don't know how to pronounce that, Kola Quariani, I hope I get that right, is a mock-up of the 42nd Street Chess and Checker Parlor in New York City. Director Stanley Kubrick was a regular chess player there, as was Kola.
He was a former professional wrestler.
He looks like one.
He's very thick through the trunk.
Yes.
Did you know? The narration was added at the studio's insistence. Stanley Kubrick hated the idea and thus makes much of the information that the narrator provides false or mistaken.
Yeah.
The unreliable narrator. Did you know? The total budget for the film was $320,000. United Artists put up $200,000, and the rest was raised by producer James B. Harris. This was a paltry budget for a feature even by 1950s B-picture standards. Did you know? This was the first film on which Stanley Kubrick worked with a cinematographer. The eminent Lucien Ballard was hired at rather less than his usual fee because Kubrick was officially working on a film union production for the first time, which meant he could not be both director and cinematographer as he had been in the past. The two often did not agree on camera and lighting matters. Relations between them became so strained that Ballard stopped going to the dailies. Wow, somebody fought with Stanley Kubrick on set. Call Guinness.
Yeah.
Did you know? Clay states that they might make off with $2 million in the 1956 heist movie. That would be equivalent to over $23 million in 2025 dollars. I did not do the calculations on the rest. I should have probably looked up what $2,500 and $5,000 would be now, but I have to imagine it's like tens of thousands of dollars.
Well, it's 10 times more, essentially. 5 times more, so you're thinking...
50 grand and 25 grand?
Yeah.
That seems about right.
My one problem is, which I don't know if you've seen Widows, that movie tells you how much money weighs. And there's stealing, I think, like $3 million in that movie. And it weighs like 800 pounds or something. Something crazy. And he steals $2 million in like a duffel bag. A little hard to believe there.
Yeah, 2,500 would be $30,000 today.
Okay. So not a small amount, but not like substantial compared to what the other guys were making out on.
You can go have a nice vacation in Hawaii.
Somebody wants to pay me $30,000 to get the shit kicked out of me for 20 or 10 minutes? As long as I don't end up with permanent disabilities, have at it.
Fair enough. But that looks like a good spot for our first break. We'll be right back. Before we jump back into the episode, next week for our 313th episode, we are set to once again break a tie, but this time between three unlikely films: David Lean's The Bridge on the River Kwai from 1957, Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo from 1958, and Todd Phillips's The Hangover from 2009. Come join us as we debate the qualities of all three films to figure out which of these ranks supreme.
And what number are they tied at?
I would have to look here, so give me 1 second. I don't immediately have it available for you.
Because either two of those are incredibly too low, or one is incredibly too high.
They are tied at 115 out of 280, 81 films, somewhere in there. So a little bit more than halfway up.
It's wild.
We have not discussed The Bridge on the River Kwai since our first season. It has been 6 years. Just saying.
I'll have to resurrect my song.
Sure, if you want to do that. We're the only people on the episode next week for the tiebreaker, so we can do whatever the fuck we want. But before we get much further, let's check in with our guest, Peterson. What is going on with you? What are you working on? And where can people find you?
So you can find me Instagram, Letterboxd, Peterson W. Hill, Twitter, same thing, Peterson W. Hill. Haven't been as active. Whew, man, end of the school year. It kills you. Every year. Forget how busy it is. What do we got? Dance stuff this weekend. Last weekend was vocal and acting showcase stuff. And then what do we got? My kids are both auditioning next week. And so it's just, whew. Things heat up.
So this is your kids. I was just trying to picture you in a tutu.
Well, that'd be a ballet belt for the men. A nice. It's kind of like a cup for ballet. So
a cup. What do you have to protect the sack from in ballet?
Well, more it's so that I think your penis doesn't protrude in tights. It's a nice smooth.
You can't see the definition. So this is
nice
the ballet equivalent.
Surface,
yeah, this is the ballet equivalent of the penis sock.
Yeah.
Is that like Mad Men or where they had to make his pants bigger because people were noticing too much?
It's John Hamm. He's got a ham bone on him.
From what I gather from rumors, yes.
Why did that need to be said here? We don't need to talk about John Hamm's junk on an episode of The Killers. Or The Killing, excuse me.
What? Okay, why not?
And you wonder why I call you dirty old man. Like it was
Dirty
so
grandpa.
unprompted.
Bobby De Niro.
Well, he's not exactly a grandpa, so he can't be dirty grandpa.
Yeah.
He might be eventually. Likely not because of me.
But other than that, yeah, I mean, closing our house in like a month, so that's occupying.
Oh, you did actually figure it out.
Yeah,
okay.
It's finally. The market's been miserable. So, and we didn't need to move, so we're not like we have to sell now. So we were waiting until somebody gave us a good offer, and yeah. So it's end of school year and work, but check out my back catalog. Work starts at midnight. Obviously, we got a little over a baker's dozen in the can here too. So
Yeah, 16 would be more than 13.
Yep.
There you are again with the math.
I said a couple more than a baker's dozen.
Yeah, that would be 15. Yeah. This is 16.
Yeah. We're talking in the can.
Well, supposedly, and your mother and I have had this debate for years, a couple could be 2 or 3.
That would be a thruple.
No. And if you look it up in like the Oxford Dictionary, it does say it can be 2 or 3.
Okay. Couple definition, Oxford Dictionary. Because if I didn't add that word, it came up with something weird. Oxford Learner's Dictionaries. It directly says 2 people who are seen together. Couple, 2 people or things. I saw a couple of men get out. A small number of people or things.
Small number.
Okay. 2 people who are seen together is the third definition, especially if they are married or in a romantic or sexual relationship. Those are the 3 definitions. 2 of them have 2 people, and the other one just kind of leaves it slightly ambiguous, and you're using that to say that it's somehow 3 when the colloquialized colloquially, God damn it. I never pronounce this correctly, and I always have such trouble. Colloquially accepted version is 2.
I'm just saying, I always said it was 2, but I actually did look it up and found that it possibly is as many as 3. So,
and
whatever.
That's bunk. But okay. So now we've gotten the definition of couple by the Oxford Dictionary. We've talked about John Hamm's junk. We've done the math multiple times tonight. What else are we going to have on this random episode?
I think I have a Nietzsche quote for later.
Anyway, moving on. We left off at best performance. Dad, who did you have down?
I have Kubrick.
Does any of us not have Kubrick?
This thing's expertly directed. It just shows what a master he was from the beginning. Yeah.
I had wanted to try and get Ballard in here because I think the most remarkable thing about the movie for me, I think the story suffers a little bit. The dialogue's decent, but Kubrick didn't write it. The number one thing that I think is the most remarkable thing about this movie is the visual. And who is more responsible for that? 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. So I gave overall best performance to Kubrick because he also helped write it. It's more of his totality of vision. And he does so many other great visual movies that I have to feel like his aesthetic is probably bleeding through a little bit more. But that's why my best secondary performance is Lucien Ballard, because I basically had to recognize them both. I think this is, as far as mid-1950s and how things look, this might be some of the crispest, best cinematography that I can remember in a movie like this.
I mean, it still looks gorgeous today. Like it
100%.
Looks beautiful. Don't have a lot of arguments. I did go Sterling Hayden for secondary, personally. I just think he is... You need somebody commanding. You need somebody to fill up the space. And he is both, I think, commanding presence physically and charismatically.
Right, and that's why I ended up with him as my charismatic. I think he equally is up to the task of being the center of this film, but you also have to care about his character so that the final moments of the movie really end with that thud. Otherwise, you don't have that emotional catharsis working through the rest of the film.
Yeah. And my only difference there is I have Lucien Ballard as my most charismatic because I think camera work is so fun here and has just a dynamite closing shot. I think it is just an extraordinary closing shot.
I had Hayden as secondary, and I had J.C. Flippin as my most charismatic.
George, right?
Yeah. Or no.
No.
The financier, and I'm drawing a blank.
Marvin.
Okay.
He's one of those guys that was later on in the 60s, if you watched a lot of different television shows, was, that guy. Dick Van Dyke Show.
You know, Peterson,
Twilight
I was
Zone.
watching that like random 1960s TV show recently, and I'm like, that guy.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in that era.
Really?
Yeah, I did.
Do tell.
Speaking of Tarantino, like when he rips out the 1960s TV shows, and I'm like, this, in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I'm like, this is just for you. Now, it's very fun, and it's very exciting, like, watching it, but I'm like, this is so much for you.
Well, yeah. But I'm more interested in the filmmakers who are making stuff for themselves, and they let other people see it and experience it and don't care necessarily. Like, those are usually the ones where if you find a guy that has your kind of aesthetic and you just lean into it, that's usually the stuff that appeals to me, which is why I think the medium in its essence has become much more director heavy. Most of us flock around not movie stars anymore, but around directors. Who directed that is probably the number one question you have on any new movie that comes out unless it's a specific IP brand where the director doesn't matter.
And even somebody like a Timmy Chalamet making Marty Supreme this year, like Josh Safdie is, or is it? Yeah, Josh is Marty. That movie is made by Josh Safdie.
Yes,
it is. Timmy's obviously incredible in it, very good in it, but it's the vision.
It's more important that Christopher Nolan's name is on the poster than Matt Damon or Tom Holland or insert whoever you want on that poster. All of those have like small subheadings at the bottom of the poster, and Chris Nolan's name is right up front on top.
And, not even getting that big, but something like Zach Kreger with the new Resident Evil movie, people like the director of weapons. Like, it's just immediately that's what gets you in the headspace. You're like, oh, weapons was great. And sure, take me to Resident Evil with that.
Well, and I think it has to do the same thing with, why am I drawing a blank on Sinners? But the
Coogler.
same.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Coogler. And now we're looking at it and everybody's making a big deal because he's resurrecting the X-Files.
Yep.
Is anybody really, other than like deep X-Files fans, is anybody really that interested if it isn't Coogler making it? But he's doing it because that's what he wants to do. And he's always had that drive of whatever project he wants to resurrect or what he wants to make his own spin on it seems to work out for him. Whether that's the Rocky movies or whether it's Black Panther or, I guess in one case, a vampire-driven horror film. Anyway, let's move to Best Scene. I have 5 nominees here. Outlining the Plan, the early scene where they're seen in that rotating cadre of people around the table planning or at least discussing what the plan is going to be for stealing the money. Then I have Sherry, which specific to, you could pick several different scenes with her in this movie, but I think more specifically, I like the scene with her and Sterling Hayden. Then I'm going to jump quite a bit of storyline. I'm going to go to Shooting Red Lightning. The reason I want to highlight that one, it is the starkest scene where I sat up in my chair a little bit. When you hear an old movie just casually drop the N-word in the middle of it, and you're like, oh, yes, the 1950s was different.
And it signals you that this guy's bad. Like,
yeah.
It is immediately supposed to be like, ooh, you lose your sympathy for him. And it's the moment that, like, unravels him as a character because the guy throws the horseshoe at the ground. He's not going to do that if he doesn't do that to him. And the horseshoe's the thing that pops his tire that then stops him to where he can't drive away. So he gets shot.
Well, he had to do it because if he didn't, he wasn't going to get the shot off.
Correct.
Well, yeah, I get why. It's just it's kind of what this movie's really good at is all the things that can go wrong and do go wrong to make this just a complete fool's errand.
Right. Then I have the meetup after, which is obviously the raid or the thing with Sherry's boyfriend, Mastress. Yeah, Mastress. And then I have the airport. So are there any other scenes that either of you would like to add to the list?
No, I'm good.
Not a terribly long film. I think there were other scenes that you could have, but it was hard to pick out things because a lot of the focus of the movie was not lingering in any one space for too very long. It was a lot of procedural stuff. So with that being said, what do you think is the best scene?
I have Shooting Red Lightning.
Yeah, I'm going to say the same. Shooting Red Lightning is just a great, 90 seconds probably. It's just a great kind of burst of energy and excitement.
Again, it was the one that made me, that scene, sit up and pay a little bit more attention to what was going on. It had a really stark response from me in that moment because of the action and what a single word can convey, especially in a modern sense. But I ultimately went with the airport because even as off-putting and so many things that went wrong could have been if he takes a little bit of time to, like, wrap the suitcase with some belts or whatever, you know, find some bungee cords, something to put around that thing.
They didn't have bungee cords in 1956.
Whatever. You know what I mean. But if he takes a little bit more time, he possibly gets away with it. But he's so defeated by the end from everything going wrong.
My thing is, I just don't know why you don't get in a car and drive to Florida. I don't know.
Because you would probably get stopped at the border in 1956?
Did you? Right. Maybe.
They used to.
Yeah.
I don't know. But the way he's defeated at the end of the movie, to me, is the reason why it sticks in my mind as much as it does. And I think, to me, it's probably the best scene because it's encapsulation of everything that's gone wrong to that point. Now, my favorite scene is outlining the plan. It often is in most of these films because, much like Ocean's 11 or some of these other similar films, usually the highlight of the plan is like a montage scene, which has so many different moving parts to it, and it's fun to kind of have all the optimism of what could go right with the plan. So because that's the optimistic side of the movie, that's why it's my favorite here.
It's actually my favorite as well. I think it's a really fun scene, and it lays it out pretty well. So by the time you get to the actual heist, you know exactly what's happening. It gives you the exact roadmap, and you know where everyone should be at that moment. So when things are starting to unravel, you can see them happening. Like when Marvin shows up, you're like, what are you doing here?
I still had shooting red lightning simply because it was the actual seeing of things transpire that I thought was the most entertaining, and you're following along trying to figure out what exactly is going on and whatever.
I have that as my most indelible moment because, again, to me, it's the number one thing where something is dropped in. It has this small, quick burst, but because of that, it's so meaningful and impactful, and it's noticeable that it leaves an impression on me. So, to me, this is where I went. It makes the most sense for how I watched the film.
And for me, I was really deciding between the red lightning shooting and the airport sequence, specifically the last 90 seconds of the airport. And basically from the moment the cash gets flung open to the cops appear on either side of the door, and then the end just pops up. Because those are the two pieces that I remembered better than anything else about this movie. And I'm going to go with the airport sequence, though. It's a true all-timer sequence, ending scene. It truly is. I think it's a beautiful summation of the film, and I love it.
I have the airport. Several reasons. First off, when I was a kid, there used to be a cartoon strip that was in the evening paper. My dad used to read it and would show me once in a while. It's called The Born Loser, where no matter what he ever did, things never worked out the way it was supposed to. And so that's what it reminded me of. There's just no way, no matter how bright or how great or how carefully plans, it's just never going to happen for this guy. That's number one. Number two, just shows you when you have these little short-legged yippy dogs who can't shut up and drive you insane, and what kind of mischief and hell they can create for any individual who has to deal with them.
You mean like me every day in the office?
I'm referring to a particular dog who spends half of its year shitting up my house.
Not literally most of the time.
Enough.
99% of the time.
Yeah, well.
Neither of them listen to this, so it's fine.
Yeah, I know. Well, we have one employee who does, and she probably will laugh because she'll understand that I really hate the dog.
There are multiple employees who listen to this, but that's beside the point.
Yeah.
That looks like a good spot, though, for our second break. We'll be right back. Before we jump back into the episode, and before we get to the Stanley Rubric in a minute, if you're ever curious about our Master Greatest Movies of All Time list that has every graded movie we've ever discussed on the show, there's a link in the episode description of every episode of this show, or you can go to RonnieDuncanStudios.com and find it as the top entry on the Greatest Movie of All Time podcast show page. That has the grades we've done so far for all 281 movies we've graded, and we continue to add more each week. Make sure to check that out as we go and follow along. Dad, do we have anyone to remember this week?
Yes. Jonathan Tiersten, 60, American actor, Sleepaway Camp, Return to Sleepaway Camp, The Perfect House. Rex Reed, 87, American film critic and journalist. Superman the movie, The Gong Show. Michael Pennington, 82, English actor, Return of the Jedi, The Iron Lady. Donald Gibb, 71, American actor, Revenge of the Nerds, Stripes, Bloodsport.
I only have limited engagement with two of these actors. One is Michael Pennington, who played one of the Empire random guys in Return of the Jedi and was subsequently taken out. I think he's on Endor, one of the moons. If you look him up, you'll probably recognize him.
Yep.
And Donald Gibb. Simply put, nerds!
Ogre, 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 ogre.
A movie I've never seen.
Really? Oh,
Never seen it, yeah.
It does not age well.
no, it doesn't. But it was a scream when I was about 19.
A scream? How old are you?
I was a scream 19. I was 19. What do you want?
No,
I'm
that's
using
not what
the
I'm saying. That language
I'm
is
using
like
the jargon the jargon that I had when I was 19.
that was the jargon in
Yes.
1985.
Yes.
Maybe 1958.
I was gonna say.
Now,
Do you also use the term mosey? That's rad.
Mosey on down to the Cineplex for a rad
Mosey
showing
was
of Revenge of the Nerds.
Rad.
What the fuck? All right. Anyway, does anybody have anything else to add here?
When I was a kid, I used to watch a lot of different movie critics and such, and Rex Reed was a common one that you'd watch. Sometimes I agreed with him, and sometimes I just wanted to take and throw something at the TV screen. But he kind of predated Siskel and Ebert and the modern movie critic. But he was on NBC a lot. He was on the Today Show. He and Gene Shalit were the most popular ones on television in the early to mid 70s. I think he's kind of lost, or late in his career, obviously, he had kind of lost some of the notoriety he had when he was younger.
As most people do when they age.
Well, and he was in kind of direct opposition to someone like Pauline Kael. He was the exact opposite style of criticism. He was much more populist. Sam.
So we recognize these here fondly for their contributions to the arts, with a moment of silence in their honor. Thank you. Let's move to Best Funniest Lines. I will start with Johnny Clay. You'd be killing a horse. That's not first-degree murder. In fact, it's not murder at all. In fact, I don't know what it is.
Sherry Petty. It isn't fair. I never had anybody but you. Not a real husband. Not even a man. Just a bad joke without a punchline.
Those are my two.
Okay.
Those are my two.
I have a few more. Maurice, you have my sympathies then. You have not yet learned that in this life you have to be like everyone else. The perfect mediocrity. No better, no worse. Individuality's a monster, and it must be strangled in its cradle to make our friends feel confident. You know, I've often thought that the gangster and the artist are the same in the eyes of the masses. They are admired and hero worshipped, but there is always a present underlying wish to see them destroyed at the peak of their glory.
Johnny Clay. You know, Faye, the biggest mistake I made was shooting for peanuts. 5 years have taught me one thing, if nothing else. Anytime you take a chance, you better be sure the rewards are worth the risk. Because they could put you away just as fast for a $10 heist as they can for $1 million job.
Johnny Clay. None of these men are criminals in the usual sense. They've all got jobs. They all live seemingly normal, decent lives. But they've got their problems, and they've all got a little larceny in them.
Johnny Clay. Like the man said, life is a glass of tea, huh? Maurice. Johnny, my friend, you never were very bright, but I love you anyway.
Faye. Johnny, you've got to run. Johnny Clay. What's the difference?
I'm out.
As am I. Let's move to the Stanley rubric then. Legacy is up first. This is a measure of the legacy of the film approximately 5 years after it came out to today. So roughly 1961 to the present. The last, I think that's 75 years. Seems right. The last 70... Oh, no. 65 years.
65.
Yeah. See, now I'm guilty of bad math here, too. The last 65 years, what is the legacy of this film is shared between two equal yet separate groups, the industry and the audience, 5 and 5 points apiece for a total of 10. Dad, would you like to go first or second here?
I will go first. I'm going to start with the public. The public in general has never heard of this film. You will have the cinephiles who have watched it or know of it. And as normal, that's a 2. Now, the question of the legacy is different. We've had multiple directors who've said they've used this as inspiration, that it's one of their better films, that it was where they came up with their ideas for certain ways they shot films, etc. I think this has risen. It's become on everybody's more popular list. It's been on the list of the best films, not on the AI 100 or AFI 100, etc. I'm going to give it a 4.5 simply because of the insider's belief that who studied Kubrick and who have evaluated the films in general and films in particular, this is one of his better films, especially under the conditions and the minimalist budget he was working with. So I'm at a 6.5 overall.
I think this is a film that is likely that most cinephiles, because it was made by Stanley Kubrick, have likely seen it one time or another. Especially given the collector's editions and the Criterion Collection restoration and all the other things that have come out subsequently about this movie. I think it's gotten a little bit of a reclamation project from people who are artsy that study this a little bit more, but it does not sink in with the general population. You say the name of this movie, it doesn't evoke the same things as a Doctor Strangelove or a Shining, even a Clockwork Orange, that people have a better conceptual vision of. The killing is just not going to necessarily live up to that billing, even though I don't think it's necessarily less. It's not on the bottom of Kubrick's list as far as I'm concerned of films that we've covered of his. I think it's stylistically at least in the middle of the films that we've covered of his, but it doesn't evoke that same nature. It doesn't have the brand name recognition. So I have that at a 3. But on the industry side, I think because of the preservations, because it's a Kubrick film, which there's only a dozen of them overall, I think each one carries a certain weight and significance with people in the industry that it wouldn't otherwise. And the fact that, with the exception of maybe the Asphalt Jungle, that this is a leading film in this kind of genre, and people have borrowed from this example. I want to say, and yes, I am bleeding a little bit into novelty. I recognize that, and I'm disobeying my own rules a little bit. But what I'm saying is that other directors taking influence from it makes it a little bit more relevant to the industry legacy of this film. So I'm going to give that a 3.5, and I'm at a 6.5.
The way to think about this movie from a public standpoint is it's not your 5 like a Shining, but people will watch The Shining, and then they'll watch 2001, and if you vibe with Kubrick, you're going to continue down the line, and you will eventually get to The Killing. And I think just being a Kubrick property, people will get to it eventually if they like him. So I'm going to land at a 2.5 for the public. And then for the industry, I'm at a 4. I think it's well revered. It is well thought of. It is expertly directed, so directors love it. And there's obviously the preservation of it. I mean, the criterion of this looks beautiful. It's gorgeous. So yeah, I think a 6.5 is fair on this one.
Now, none of us mentioned it, and I kind of forgot to, which is part of the reason I'm bringing this up. But this is the movie that basically is the entrance point for Stanley Kubrick. His 2 prior films, or at least feature films, were not widely seen, not widely produced, but this movie specifically gets him hired on Paths of Glory by Kirk Douglas. It gets him hired by Marlon Brando. And then he eventually gets on to Spartacus, where after that, then he becomes Stanley Kubrick with Strangelove and 2001 and Clockwork Orange and Linden and The Shine, etc. And so he takes these bigger swings, these bigger projects. But this is the movie that gets him in the public eye, or at least the industry eye, more favorably. And I don't think anybody really reflected that necessarily in their score, per se. So if that makes a difference at all, maybe, maybe not. Right now we're at an average of a 5.67.
Which feels right. That feels right for this.
Moving on, let's go to impact and significance. This is a measure of the impact and significance among those same 2 groups, the industry and the audience. However, this is for the initial 5 years after the film came out. So 1956 to 1961, what is the impact and significance of this film between those same 2 groups? Peterson, would you like to lead here?
Yeah, so I think for the industry I'm going to start with, he gets Paths of Glory a year after this, and then he does Spartacus 4 years after this. I don't think he gets those 2 movies without this. And Paths of Glory is a step in an artistic direction like this is, something much more bold and has a much, I'd say, deeper resonance. Spartacus is obviously, that is a for-hire job, but it also gives him the clout to then go on and make 2 years after that Lolita. So within 6 years, and obviously I'm not 5, but within 6 years, so he is making Lolita within 5 years of the release of this movie, I would imagine. So I think without this, you don't have the 5-year period or 6-year period where he is the most prolific of his career, making the most movies. Because also Killer's Kiss was a year before this, too. You don't have that prolific side of it. So I think you're at a 4 for the you're at a 4, and then when you go for the general public, I'm going to say a 1.5. This did not get seen. People didn't know about it, but it did get him other things. So I think the people that saw it probably did like it. So I think it's a 1.5.
For a 5.5?
5.5.
I would agree in part on most of what you've commented to this point. However, I don't think that Kubrick has the same clout that we've given for other... What are you...
Okay, where are we? Novelty?
No.
Okay.
Impact and significance.
Okay. Well, then why are you talking without giving me an opportunity to talk?
Why would I give you an opportunity to talk yet?
Okay, go ahead.
You had Legacy first, and I gave him first billing.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Kubrick is the lone person that you could hold out from this movie as being really supported or coming forward from the movie. Nobody else in the cast goes on to like a big career. Sterling Hayden has a couple of different films, but he's kind of more of a character actor. He's never really a lead again, as far as I can tell. He's a bit player and somewhat in other Kubrick films, with the exception of The Godfather. I mean, I'll put that out there. He has one other major significant role that I can recall, but again, he's a bit player in that. He's not even a really big name or something else. He's just kind of a character who's in only a couple of scenes. So he has a decent career, but we're talking about, arguably, to some, the greatest director of all time. The Killing, to me, only really gives you probably a 3 on the industry as a result of that. I mean, yes, you could say that Kubrick rises a bit, but it's not that he's at the peak yet of what he could be, his overall clout, his ability to make stuff, that he's been nominated for things. I think if you're looking at that, it's somewhere between probably Strangelove and Barry Lyndon, where he's at the peak. But on a audience level for this, I have this at a 1. You can't make negative money. You just can't. And nobody knew who Stanley Kubrick was yet. Even after Paths of Glory, it's not like this is a Stanley Kubrick movie. This is a Kirk Douglas movie as made by an auteur. And after the fact, later, we recognize it more as a Stanley Kubrick movie. But he was still not Stanley Kubrick yet. That really doesn't happen until 2001. So from that standpoint, I don't think it has the brand name recognition. Nobody knew this movie existed. It got basically thrown out with the trash by the studio. They released it as a B picture, but they released it on the back end at a really bad time of year. They didn't promote it at all. It got Kubrick some jobs, but I'm going to go with a 4.
I agree with your comment about the public. It's a 1. I mean, you lost 1/3 of the budget. Not good. From an industry, I'm at a 3.5. Sterling Hayden had this bizarre career. He was a good actor, but he hated acting. He would much rather have been on a houseboat in some place in the South Pacific. He just came back to Hollywood periodically to earn enough money to go live on his houseboat someplace.
Can't blame him.
And that's all he cared about. So he made a ton of B films. And while you say this is the only time he made other B films going into the early 60s. The only time he ever made any films that were any good were when he worked with Kubrick, because he just made schlock films that they were willing to pay him good money to do virtually nothing, show up, kind of act, make sure you know your lines, and that's all you needed to do. You didn't need to, spend any extra time or effort or doing anything significant. So I'm at a 3.5 for the industry, because at least he was good and there was some good performances overall, and I think that kind of was recognized. So I'm at a 4.5.
That is a 4.67 average between the three of us. Moving to Novelty. Novelty is a measurement of the originality of anything having to do with the movie for 5 points, and execution on anything in the movie for an additional 5 points, and a total of 10. I will lead here. I think from a novelty standpoint, even though this isn't the first or the most popularized version of the heist film, I think this creates the modern heist film, and kind of a dour one at that. I think it has some level of... It's using some additional tropes that were not necessarily apparent to all film noir, but doing it in a fresh and creative way. The way this movie looks on an execution level is outstanding. The places where I have the killing as slightly less than is just a little bit in the convoluted nature of the story. The narration, especially if it's not reliable and it's truly mistaken or poor, as supposedly it is. I don't know. There's some things in here, and some of the characters aren't as appealing as they probably could be, partly, I would assume, due to the budget. So overall, I have this at a 5 for overall novelty or the originality of the film, because I do think that this is a seminal film in the middle, dropped in. It has some unicorn qualities for the time and place that it was made, and it feels like it should be a much more interesting film, but I have it at a 4 for execution and a 9.
Well, originality, yes, I agree with you for the most part. I think there were heist films, but they were primarily westerns up until then, so I couldn't go 5. I went with 4.5. And as far as execution, it was Kubrick, but Kubrick light. It wasn't where he was at his ultimate. So I'm at a 4.5 for that. So I'm at a 9 overall.
So you join my 9. I would have tried to argue you up, because I would like you to, other than the Great Train Robbery from, I think, like 1925, what are the westerns that are great robbery films that predate this movie?
Stagecoach is a robbery, right?
No.
No?
No.
What do I...
They're just trying to go across the West, and they're being attacked by the Indians. Like I said, I looked up heist films before this. There were a couple of film noir heist films, but the only other one of note, and again, I've never seen it, so I can't compare and contrast, was The Asphalt Jungle. But since you ended at my 9, I'm not going to argue vociferously. There's a nice SAT word for you.
So on top of what you guys have said, I think one thing that really sets in here is the primary themes that Kubrick's going to work with throughout his career. And one of those is the idea of progress. All of these men are trying to get up in the world, and they're unable to. And they hit against the system. And that's one, the system of themselves, that you've got all these people who are looking out for themselves and acting upon their own humanity, and that becomes the downfall of them all, is that their own humanity is too prevalent in their own lives, and they can't put it aside for 2 hours to do this heist. I think that is something that Kubrick is going to explore much more in his career. The idea that progress is violent, and progress is in some ways antithetical to being human. So I think that sets in here, but I am right with you guys. I'm at a 9 across the board.
Makes easy math.
You think?
Maybe.
Just maybe. Let's move to classicness. This is a measure of how well the film has aged or not. We start at a baseline of a 6 because we feel that it is easier to move down than it is to move something up, usually for being timeless or ahead of its time in some capacity or another. But to be quite honest, we usually add more points onto this category than we ever take off. So I'm not sure why anymore that we started at a 6. We've already moved it down from the 7 that it used to be and all this other stuff. But this category lives very much in between the lines and the nuance of it all. So we turn to our senior nuance correspondent, Dana.
Well, nuance is gray, and I obviously, for those of you on YouTube, realize my hair is gray, if not white. Anyway, I would point out that in this particular case, if we start at the 6, use of the N word in this particular circumstance would be normally a point or a half point or a full point down. It's not. It's actually a half point up because it conveyed what was going on in society in 1956 and specifically was used as a tool by which to further the story. So I'm a half point up for it. The fact that the question is that as I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, okay, this film could be released with modern actors today, and would it necessarily be able to be relevant? I think it'd be pretty close. And I originally had only a 1 for up further. I'm going to go with 1.5 as I'm thinking about it since I did this earlier today. And I'm going to go with Classicness at an 8.
That's fair. We're not so different, you and I.
Surprise.
I know. I have a +2 on timelessness with this movie. Again, I think it looks great. I think conceptually overall, the killing is fairly modern. The way the story is laid out, the way it's presented, there are only a few things that I would maybe knock it just slightly. But again, some of those are just aesthetic more than anything else. The lone place that I will knock at a half a point is there are some societal tropes from the mid-1950s that seem a little bit out of place. One being the importance of horse racing and the amount of people that would attend and bet on that.
Nope.
And what?
My wife is from Saratoga Springs, and horse racing is an insanely big thing. It is massive. Each year, they do tons of races. We went last year; it was packed. There's probably 200,000-300,000 people at least. Kind of in the probably close to like 20,000-30,000 people in the area. Dave Portnoy bought a place in Saratoga Springs because he wants to go to the horse races. It's a huge thing. It's a huge deal.
It's not. But neither is chess. Or chess parlors either at this point. I just think those are a little bit of a relic. But I will also say that because of the modernity of how the story is told, of how it is laid out, and the type of genre it's portraying, it feels a more modern film, and so I gave it an additional point there. I'm at an 8.5.
So my only real knocks on the modernity of it are if you put this film in a modern context and you put it in 2026, it wouldn't work. There's cameras, there are badges, ID cards, all these things that, you know, from a heist perspective, just don't make sense anymore. I look now and I'm like, man, put me back 50 years ago. I'll rob something, you know, because now it's like, God, could you imagine? I can't even imagine the intricacy of this movie now.
Well, first off, how many people are doing it in cash these days?
Yeah.
If you're robbing anything, it's digital.
Yeah. No, that's true. But I do think horse racing personally is so relevant, at least in pockets of the country.
Okay. I'm willing to say Louisville.
Saratoga Springs, like, if you walk through the city and you walk through the park, there are horse statues everywhere. It is
That's like
huge
saying
deal.
Football is important in Green Bay, Wisconsin.
But the ideas and the themes and what this movie is about still resonate today. The one kind of cringe moment, as Dana said, is the use of the N-word, but it is for a purpose. It is supposed to make you not like the character. I am right with you, Tom. I'm at an 8.5.
So that is an 8.33 average between the three of us. Let's move to rewatchability. This is insert your own subjective test on how rewatchable the film is. We'll start with our guest, as we usually do on this category.
Yeah, so I was thinking about this because, I started this movie, and then my wife kept calling me every 5 minutes because she started a new job, and she was deciding, do we keep my benefits or do we go to her benefits? And every 5 minutes, I had to stop it and answer her questions for 3 minutes, and then I'd go back to watching it. So I watched the first half of the movie, then I was
You do know this is a publicly available episode, right?
My wife's not going to listen to this.
Okay.
Come on.
Well, I suppose.
So then, this goes on for like an hour and a half. I get through like 40 minutes of the movie, and I'm like, all right, I got to go to bed. I'll watch the first half again tomorrow. So I pick it back up, and I watch the whole thing one sitting, and it went by in a breeze. It's just a very fun, it goes by in a flash. I've seen it. I think if you watch this every 5 to 7 years, it's the perfect amount of time to where you have not remembered all the intricacies of every little thing in the heist. You still have a little bit of surprise left. Like, I remembered exactly where it was going to end. I remember the red lightning moment, the shooting. But all the little details I didn't remember. So I think I'm at a 6.5 for this movie. I think it's a really good 5 to 7 years rewatch, but any more than that, and I don't think so.
For me, this is at a 5. It's on my, I'll rewatch it every 5 to 8 years, but it's not going to be on my more consistent loop. Although, I might, in fact, I'll go up to 5.5 because, I probably will rewatch this again within the next couple of years, simply because I would like to watch it and see if I missed some things, some little nuances that I should have picked up the first time I watched it.
Thank you for changing that midway through as I'm trying to do the math.
I know.
Yeah, I think you did that intentionally.
Did I? Or didn't I?
Okay. I'm going to give this a 6. It's shorter. It follows okay at times. I think it is a little bit choppy. It's a little harder to follow because I don't think the writing is as intricate or as detailed as you'd like it to be with a story that's a little bit non-linear. It asks a little bit of the audience, and they weren't used to these types of storytelling yet, but I also think the filmmakers weren't completely set on what this was supposed to be. So as a result of that, I think it's a little bit more convoluted, and it ends on such a dour note that I wonder what the fervor is going to be to go back to it. So as a result, I have this at a 6, and that will be the average between the three of us. For audience score on this one, we had a 70% for Google users and a 92% for Rotten Tomato users, giving us an 8.1. So to repeat the categories, we had a 5.67 for Legacy, a 4.67 for Impact and Significance, a 9 for Novelty, an 8.33 for Classicness, a 6 for Rewatchability, an 8.1 for Audience Score, giving us a final total of 41.77, and currently placing it on our list between The Notebook and Slapshot at number 221.
And how many are there in total?
I think this is number 281, 282.
Okay.
Yeah, 282. So other films around it: Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, The Right Stuff, The Artist, The Birds, Love Actually, The American President. Full Metal Jacket is at 229.
Everybody thought I was crazy when I said Notebook's one of the happiest endings ever.
Well, just above it is The Breakfast Club and Midnight Cowboy. Those are some feel-good films.
I agree with you on that comment. As I start getting older, yes.
They died together. They died. It is them. I mean, it's very sad that they died, but it's also They die in the exact place and moment they're supposed to. They die together. They don't die alone. Everyone dies alone.
Yes, everyone dies alone, and your death is not.
Not
It
if
is
you drink
your
the Kool-Aid.
personal experience. The remainder is the problem for those around you.
Yeah. That and the executor of your will that has to play Aqualung at your funeral service.
What?
He said, I'm supposed to do this. This is a requirement. At his memorial service, I'm supposed to walk up to the front, say, for those who knew Dana best, this is a song that was very personal to him and that he would appreciate if you would all listen to, and then play Aqualung. And I'm supposed to, like, play it off as extremely serious. Now,
Because
I maintain...
Everybody who knows me will understand immediately that this is the last joke that I've pulled. Everybody else will be looking around going, what the fuck? What the?
To be fair, I think the song should be Tiny Bubbles because that actually would be of some personal significance. It would still be silly enough to represent him, but there was a good 5-year period where he'd just randomly break into song for Tiny Bubbles. It was
I
like
had your
him
mother
singing
so-
MacArthur Park.
Oh, I had your mother so convinced I was going to go on a cruise and do open mic, the karaoke, and every night I was going to do Tiny Bubbles. And she was just like, no, you are not. You are not going to embarrass me like that.
Yeah.
Tiny Bubbles.
Moving on. If you have any commentary for us, you can write us at greatestaltimemoviepodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on any of our socials at Gmote Podcast, or you can find us on our website, RonnieDuncanStudios.com/Gmote Podcast. Remaining questions for The Killing. How many factors had to be just right for everything to go wrong? And mind you, I maintain that if he finds some way to secure the suitcase or gets a different suitcase, this might have turned out okay, at least for one person.
Yeah, well, all right. So all you need to do is have another police officer walk by at a particular moment in time when that duffel bag flies out the window to be picked up by the other cop.
Okay.
So
That's something that didn't happen. I'm saying how many things had to go very specifically wrong for this to all go wrong.
Well, but you think, so the shooting of Red Lightning, it goes badly because I can't remember his name. Nicky gets shot and killed. But
is that really going wrong exactly? He doesn't get out alive, but the
it affects the heist in no way.
yeah, the heist still gets done.
Yep.
Everything happening for Sterling Hayden essentially goes as planned. He has to punch the one security guard, but the one frustrating thing there is like, buddy, come on. Why is the one guy not like, everyone would have swarmed him, and it's like it goes pretty well for Sterling Hayden until the very end. For George, I mean, that guy just makes.
Yeah.
He makes so many. He's the real catalyst for everything going wrong. Like, truly, the decisions he makes are the decisions that are the undoing for everybody. He gets everyone killed. I think everyone probably gets out scot-free. Sterling Hayden doesn't need that huge, big old suitcase. He can probably fit the $200,000 in this universe. He can fit the $200,000, $300,000 in his carry-on. So I think George is the idiot. That guy sucks. I think it's a really good performance. I think that character's really interesting, but he undoes everyone.
All right, question number 2. What happens to Marvin?
Killed. He's dead on the ground.
See, I didn't see him in that room, but
He's
They're all dead.
yeah.
George is the only one who survived, and he's walking dead.
Yeah.
yeah. just so that he could, in spite, shoot his wife.
Yeah. Which, yeah, okay, I can understand.
In the 1950s, she's a two-timer. That's like just as bad as killing somebody.
And finally, what happens to Maurice? Is he the only one that gets out basically alive and well?
I think he spends like 30 days behind bars and then he's good.
Yeah.
Yep. With this 30,000.
Well, did he get all of it up front?
Yes. I believe he got everything up front. Nikki was going to get half now, half later.
Right. Okay. Any other remaining questions for either of you?
Yes. How did he go about recruiting this group? I mean, if you talk to a bartender, you have to talk to a teller, whatever. You have to make sure you pick the right one, because if they say no, the whole plan's screwed.
I think that's part of the folly of Johnny Clay, is that he picks the wrong people to do this heist with. These aren't like lifelong friends. These aren't people that he's known forever. So him bringing George into the fold, he brings him in because, he works at the track. Well, he's the wrong guy from the track, probably. Marvin, he's been friends with for a long time. They're close. So I think that's part of the problem, is that he has kind of picked people to pick them.
But Marvin's only real relationship to the movie is as the financier and the guy who holds the apartment.
Yes.
Yeah. Although George was competent enough to hold Sam Spade at least under a gun.
No, because even in that movie, he gets the gun taken away from him multiple times.
That's true. You kept going, I recognize that guy. And I said, yeah, he was and I can't remember the character's name in the Maltese Falcon.
He was the bodyguard for Sidney Greenstreet.
So, anyway. And then I have one remaining question. How much would it take for you to participate in a heist?
I think it depends on what the heist is.
And what my role is.
And what my role is. It would have to be a pretty sizable thing. Because my criminal expertise and my ability to be a good criminal is pretty scant. It's low.
Well,
I think from a moral standpoint, we're talking at least 50 mil. And I don't know how many heists you're going to be able to do where that kind of cash is coming out.
Well, but the question would be...
Really?
Yes.
It would take 50?
Yeah. 1 million doesn't go very far anymore. Even 10 million doesn't really set you up as nearly as much as you think it would.
So let's say you're robbing a bank. I don't know if I have any moral qualms about robbing, Bank of America. Like, that's all insured. That's all the FDIC. That's all. They're going to get that $50 million back.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm not that concerned about like the moral aspect of that. But if I'm in a heist, like, I don't know, pulling jewelry out of somebody's safe and cash out of somebody's safe, that's a different thing. That's
sure.
The moral weight there is much different.
Well, I mean,
robbing a casino, I'd be okay with.
Casino, a horse track, these are essentially victimless crimes, which is also why I think Kubrick chooses this plot, because these guys aren't doing something that really hurts anybody, hurts no one.
Yeah. I'm an old criminal defense attorney, and I used to play this game of, while I was driving someplace out of town for a couple hours, if I got bored with what I was listening to on the radio, just sitting and trying to devise the perfect crime. I probably could do pretty well. But
I used to theorize torture methodology while I was sitting in Wednesday Chapel.
I mean, if you want to understand the perfect ability to steal identity, I have it.
Let's not. and say we did.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank our guest for being back with us for his 16th time. He will be back with us again in a few weeks for Clute. But until then, please again remind everybody what you're working on and where they can find you.
Yes, check out my back catalog, obviously here at Gmote, then also at War Starts at Midnight. You can also check out my Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, all that at Peterson W. Hill.
Excellent. Any remaining thoughts for the week, Dad?
No. Looking forward to June 8th.
June 8th.
Yes.
Oh, that's right, your announcement.
Yes.
I was going to try and mention that earlier in the show, and I forgot, so I apologize.
Yes, I will be doing my own live
Let's call
podcast.
it a live stream, yes.
Yeah, and it'll be recorded and available on YouTube and other locations.
The law one?
How are you doing that?
We will talk about that.
Ah, yes. So you need a producer.
No, not necessarily. I just need a little bit of coaching. It's on law. It's about general things. I have a wide range of things. Everything from the fact that I've been married for 37 years and how to stay married for 37 years to what is law school, what's the value of it, what should you do, shouldn't you do, how you go about handling a jury if you're going to be doing a trial, what kinds of things I've seen, not seen in the world, thoughts, philosophies on child rearing, etc. I don't know. I've got a lot of experience, and I thought, well, maybe somebody will find it of value.
And what is the name of this show? Is it Stream of Consciousness? Because that's what it sounds like.
That will be announced next week.
Okay, meaning you don't have one yet.
No, I do have a name, but I just am not going to announce it until next week.
Deliberations of the Double D.
We will see.
I don't really have anything for my remaining thoughts for the week. Nothing of immediate importance comes to mind. We'll be covering 3 films next week, technically, so watching all 3 of them for the upcoming week is a little bit more of a problem-esque, but there's also not as many notes to prepare. We haven't done a tiebreaker in quite some time. It's 3 films that I shouldn't have a problem watching, but 2 of them are less entertaining than the other one.
Vertigo is incredibly entertaining if you're saying that one's not. Vertigo rules.
Vertigo is one of the lesser enjoyable Hitchcock films to me.
I understand everybody loves it and whatever.
Not everybody. Certain critical
Just
people.
never been one of my favorite Hitchcock films.
So it was a Hitchcock that I was firmly in the center. Kind of how I am on North by Northwest. I know you guys love North by Northwest.
We do.
But I watched Vertigo a couple of times, and I was like, I like this. And then I saw it on the big screen, and I was so unbelievably enveloped. And it rose completely. It rose from like 6th or 7th Hitchcock to like number 1.
Okay. I mean, I'll watch all of them like I'm supposed to, and we'll go from there and see what happens. I have a feeling that 2 of the movies will be competing for each category, and one will be falling much further behind. But
Yes.
we'll see how it turns out next week. Otherwise, that looks like a good spot for us this week. Thank you for listening. I do wish we could chat longer, but I'm having an old friend for dinner. Next week for our 313th episode, we are set to once again break a tie, but this time between 3 unlikely films. David Lean's The Bridge on the River Kwai from 1957, Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo from 1958, and Todd Phillips's The Hangover from 2009. Come join us as we debate the qualities of all 3 films to figure out which of these ranks supreme. Please like, follow, rate, and review, or whatever on whichever platform you have so that more can join in on our fun. You can also email the show at RonnieDuncanStudios.com or at GreatestAllTimeMoviePodcast@gmail.com, or find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Letterboxd, Threads, Blue Sky, or TikTok at the handle @GmotePodcast. The Greatest Movie of All Time is a production of Ronnie Duncan Studios. Our show is mixed, edited, and written by Thomas Duncan. Our music is thanks to Purple Planet Music. Our distributor is Captivate FM. Our technical provider is Riverside FM.